Hello, everybody. Chris Fluke here. Chris Fluke Podcast, episode 62. Now, today, man, I just listened to episode 61, and I apologize for all those birds squeaking in the background. My barn is infiltrated with birds. There's a few nests in there, and here I'm thinking, like, yeah, it's not a big deal. With these baby birds, they hatched. And now I got birds squeaking everywhere. So I moved inside here. So anyhow, this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about a few things. Now, I want to be going over my weekly word, which is a newsletter I send out every Sunday at 7:30 a.m. sharp Eastern time. And it's basically, 5 things. Tim Ferriss has his 5 Bullet Fridays. This guy, James Clear, does a 3, 2, 1. It's basically just a week in review, so to speak. So this past week, I'm going to be talking about share a little story about the strength of women in the world here in honor of Mother's Day. I've got a little love for Boston, a little bit of speed camp stuff. I got some stuff going down this summer that I'm excited about. Making big changes, how we're going to do that. A book I've been reading, and lastly, a little quote that kind of applies to the book and also applies to a lot of things in life. Now, let's get started with this stuff. Mother's Day was on Sunday. Hopefully, you guys all, spend some time with the loved ones, right? That may be mothers, that may be our mothers, or just some women, and recognize the importance and the strength and the power that these women have in our world here. So, Stephen Pressfield wrote a little book called Gates of Fire. And if you've seen the movie 300, this book, Gates of Fire, breaks down that story better than anything. It is about the Pass of Thermopylae, the Battle of 300, the Battle of Thermopylae, whatever you want to call it. All right? And basically in this book here, he talks about King Leonidas and how he chose the 300, and it was an all-sire unit is what he called it. And what is an all-sire unit? It's basically a unit of men that had male offspring. So, it was a suicide. It was basically a suicide mission. And Leonidas knew it, and all the men that he chose knew it. And as this story goes here, one woman, for example, not only her husband but her son was chosen to be on this unit, and she asked King Leonidas, and she asked why. Is there some sort of curse? Is this punishment for something? And the king replied this: I will never tell the city why I appointed these 300. I will never tell the 300 themselves, but now I tell you, I chose them not for their own valor, lady, but for that of their women. So these men were chosen because he knew that these individuals had strong women at home, that they had women at home that were not, that were not good, that were going to kind of uphold and continue to fight the good fight for the Spartan culture here, as thousands and thousands and maybe even millions of Persians came to try to eliminate them from the face of this earth. And he knew that these men had strong women, and that these women would be able to raise strong children and uphold the standards of being a Spartan. And I think that's very important to remember. It's like that saying, behind every man is a strong woman, right? And I think that King Leonidas recognized that back in the day, and I think it's still true to this very day. All right. Anyway, it's a great book. It's a tremendous, Stephen Pressfield's great, Legend of Bagger Vance, The War of Art, man. The War of Art is the ultimate motivational book, right? If you need a little kick in the rear end, you got to pick it up. I'm thinking I'm probably going to be starting that soon, because there's a certain amount of resistance in this world. Stephen Pressfield breaks down what this resistance is and how we can kind of combat that and overcome it and then keep moving forward. War of Art's a great book, and then Gates of Fire, of course, tremendous book. Now, Marisa and Amelia, they're at Acadia National Park with some friends, man, and they're enjoying it, man. That's, I see pictures of my daughter's videos of my daughter there. She looks freaking pumped and enjoying every second of it. And on their way back from Maine, they're making a little pit stop in Boston, and I'm going to meet them up there. Boston's one of my favorite cities. I've got this affinity for the American Revolution. The George Washingtons, the guys that kind of, the guys from that Boston area, I think they were referred to as the Sons of Liberty at one point. They stood up to what they deemed was tyranny, was some resistance, and they stood up to that resistance, and they created a movement that led to, this country being founded. And, the last episode was on leadership, and there was tons, there was incredible examples of leadership that occurred during this period of time at different stages of time. And, if it wasn't for that great leadership, this country probably never would have been founded. So I'm looking forward to going to Boston. They have something called, I think it's called the Freedom Trail, something like that, where you get to tour the city. And I'm happy that we could take Emmy there and she can walk on her own and navigate this city. And, we'll be able to see some cool old things and learn a little bit in the process. And coming home, I'm probably going to have another one of those moments in time where I'm going to be obsessed and reading all this stuff on that Revolutionary War period. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there, man. I might be digging into that George Washington biography, maybe that 700 plus pager that's been intimidating me. But that's what we got going on in these next couple of days. But also, the marketing of sports camps has been driving me a little bit crazy. There's a lot of prep work that goes into getting all the systems in place. And man, oh man, I feel like I need I need an assistant or something just to kind of put all this stuff together. But, this summer we've got some great stuff. I got some camps going on for young kids, ages 8 to 12. I got a great helper, my boy Stevie Rose, college student. I used to coach him. We're going to be running some camps, man, and we're going to be getting kids active and encouraging physical fitness, not only to, be great at sport, but also just for the rest of your life. And I think that's a key. Just creating these great positive habits, because without positive habits at a young age, I think you could potentially find yourself in a situation like, this one actor, I listened to him in an interview, Ethan Suplee. If you ever saw Remember the Titans, he was the big overweight, 500 plus pound high school kid on that show anyway, or in that movie. And Ethan, he had some bad habits, right? And he didn't have those good positive habits. Maybe they weren't created at a young age. Maybe anything that he found diet related or fitness related, he viewed it as something not positive, and it could send you down a road that it's going to be nearly impossible to come back from. And Ethan, and this guy, and I talked about it in the episode involving my brother, with drug addiction. It's like, it doesn't take much to send you down the wrong path. And once you're on that path, man, it's hard to scrape your way out of it. And there's two ways that you could get out of this path, right? We have the environment that we live in, and then we also have the psychological, I don't want to say a disorder, but you have the psychological issue that sends you down that path in the first place. So, just to speak on my brother, because I know his situation a bit, but I don't know his full story. Long story short, man, there was something that happened with him. There may have been something that happened with Ethan where, Ethan, no matter how much weight he lost, he went from 550 pounds down to 200 pounds. And getting down to 200 didn't bring happiness in his life. So, he literally gained and lost hundreds of pounds multiple times over the course of his life. And he realized one thing. He's like, the scale weight's not going to define whether or not I'm happy. I need to figure out what's going on in this brain of mine and put the systems in place to feel better about myself. And in addition to not only that side of it, you also have the environment where, if you are somebody that, say you just get out of rehab for whatever, if you get put back into an environment where you see the same people or you see the same triggers, if your new habits aren't strong enough, you're probably going to fall back into that same trap again. So, you have this this mental wiring going on that's sending you into this path, right? This loop that you got going on, this little bit of a feedback loop where you see a trigger and you're going to engage in an activity, and that's going to continue to repeat over and over again. Now, one way to break that habit is to find a habit that's stronger and try to ingrain that into your brain and get that to overtake those other loops that you have. It's not like you could totally remove them from your life. That those triggers are still going to be there, but you just need to have systems in place, habits in place that are going to be stronger than whatever that trigger may be. So if you find yourself, in need of a cigarette, maybe you go out and walk a lap around the block and you decide maybe I don't need that. All right. Or you're thinking maybe I want to go gorge on some food. Maybe if I, hold a plank or jump some rope or you do something, right, that's going to eliminate that desire. You just keep pushing it off and you just keep trying to win those little battles over and over again so it gets hardwired and it becomes a very strong habit. Those small battles, those small wins can become huge, huge, huge breakthrough moments in your life. But you just got to keep fighting. You got to keep pushing. So when you have some issues like this, you need to enrich your environment by positive people, positive habits, positive actions. And then in addition to that, if you have something going on psychologically, man, that is bringing you unhappiness, you need to get to the root of that. And It's the only way that you're going to have some long-term success, all right? So enrich the environment, treat what's going on in that brain, man. Talk to somebody, talk to a loved one, talk to a sibling, talk to a counselor, talk to a therapist, talk to somebody, man, but try to get to the bottom of this thing, right? So now, when we start talking about the brain and all this stuff, and, you know, we have to create, I don't remember the quote exactly, but Frederick Douglass, the great thinker, you know, the former slave turned activist turned, you know, intellectual monster, so to speak, you know, tremendous brain in that man. He something along the lines of, it's easier to raise strong children than, you know, fix broken ones or something like that, right? So our job as a parent is to, you know, create these strong, resilient children, right? At least that's what my plan is for my child. And unfortunately, there's some stuff going on. There's almost a movement right now where, you know, creating resiliency and strength in our children is kind of put on the back burner. And there's a lot of offense out there where people feel as if, you know, they're being wronged. And because they're being wronged, they're a victim. And because they're a victim, they should be treated this way and stuff like that. And, you know, what's the best way? Trauma is a real thing, right? But we can't classify. If you start classifying everything as trauma, then you're gonna nullify the meaning of that word, right? Where, you know, if you're a victim, there's real victims of crime, and then there's, you know, victims of somebody's, you know, somebody might just call you a bad name, all right? Somebody might call you a bad name, and somebody might cause physical harm to push you around, that type of bullying. They're two different things, but, you know, if that term's used over and over again, you're going to kind of take away this, you know, severity of what that word means. And in order for us, you know, to create strong and resilient children, you know, we can't shield them from this type of stuff. We need to kind of expose them that, you know, there is some bad stuff out there in this world. People are going to treat you crappy at times. The answer to that is not to run from it, not to hide from it. It's to be exposed to it, to create systems that are going to help you overcome, you know, that evil or that trauma or those hurtful words that exist. You know, for a university to, you know, give students a safe space all because of a presidential election, you know, if our kids aren't even strong enough to handle a presidential election, the results of an election, I think we have a problem, right? And I've been diving into this topic for a little bit, and, you know, in order for us to advance, you know, society, you know, it can't be a zero-sum game. We can't view somebody, we can't, you know, knock somebody down. In order for us to take a step ahead, we don't have to knock somebody down. We don't have to destroy somebody in order to put us ahead, you know. And just to use an example that happens in athletics and a story that I've been following a little bit, you know, in the state of Connecticut, you know, there's a biologically male sprinters, there's two of them, that won a good amount of medals at their, I think it was the indoor state championships, competing as females. You know, so we're advancing trans opportunity by letting them compete in that women's division, but we're doing it at the expense of biologically born females. And it becomes a zero-sum game where a +1 for this group means -1 for this group, and then we're back at zero. There's no progress there. And I don't think that's a proper approach. I think our proper approach is going to be to advance, you know, society at all different levels here, and to remain, you know, dedicated to truthfulness and things that are fact-based and science-based and stuff like that. And, you know, it just, like I said before too, it's you know, we could all afford to be a little bit better, a little bit more compassionate in areas like that, but we can't do it at the expense of other people or other groups, right? And I also think about this too, is, you know, the quote of the week that I put out there is Isaac Asimov. You know, the easiest way to solve a problem is to deny it exists. And if there's people that aren't going to acknowledge certain things and talk about certain things, if we can't talk about certain things in society, then we're not going to advance, right? We cannot pretend that these things don't exist. We cannot pretend that problems aren't there. Problems are out there, and we need to be able to talk about them, and we need to be able, if there's some, you know, negative stuff going on that we don't agree with, we need to be able to not only be outspoken against that, but have better language and better understanding and better terminology to overcome that stuff that we don't agree with. You know, the solution to, poor knowledge is better knowledge, or how do you overcome bad politics with better politics, right? Eventually, you just hope that the good is going to win out. And I'm hoping that that's what's going to happen as a whole here in society, in this great country of ours. And, I'm looking forward to getting to Boston to get into that and really start to feel that spirit. And it's kind of ground zero for that revolutionary mindset that happened here in America. And I think it all comes full circle on where we are today. And, hopefully we get some great leaders and we continue to move forward in this wonderful, crazy world that we live in, man. Hope you guys enjoy this. Again, weekly word. This stuff gets sent to you in a written form, basically. And it comes out every Sunday, 7:30 a.m. chrisflook.net. Go there to subscribe to the newsletter, or you can just tune in here. We're going to try to, create these into little podcast episodes and give you a little bit of a hot take, if you know what I'm saying. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Peace, everybody.